If one night, in the silence of an old house, you open a dusty wooden chest and your eyes fall upon a piece of paper covered in strange, wicked script, just know this: you have freed something that should never have been unbound. This is the story of Elena, a woman who only wanted to forget the past, but a damned chest forced her to face something that is not of our world. Elena was a 50-year-old woman who had lived a life of silence, swallowing her pain. The lines on her face were not from the passage of years, but from the weight of a shadow that had covered half her life. The shadow of her mother-in-law, Madame Morwenna. Morwenna was not a woman. She was an embodiment of coldness and bitterness. Her black shawl always hung on her like a shroud, and her gaze, empty of any emotion but judgment, pierced through to the bone. The sound of her slippers dragging on the stone floor of the hallway was enough to make Elena's heart sink in her chest. Morwenna was known as a charmer, one of those women to whom fearful, needy shadows would come knocking at night, secretly seeking her help to untie a knot in their lives, or perhaps to tie a knot in someone else's. In the corner of her bedroom, there was always that large, ornate wooden chest, Morwenna's forbidden territory. No one, not even her own son, Arthur, was allowed to approach it. Elena would sometimes catch a glimpse from the crack of the door of Morwenna kneeling before it, her lips moving with a silent incantation, prying the lid open just a fraction of an inch. The air in the room would instantly grow colder. Morwenna's death was an end to that suffocation. Arthur, Elena's husband, himself a product of his mother's silence and coldness, spoke neither of the past nor the future, and Elena was left with a silent house, a distant man, and that dust-covered chest sitting in the corner like a sinister secret. One night, Elena dreamt of Morwenna. Her face was bruised, her eyes seemingly stitched shut from the inside. Her voice was like the rustle of autumn leaves, low and eerie. The key to the chest is with you, under my mattress. Just be careful what you set free. The next morning, a dreadful anxiety gnawed at her. With trembling hands, she went to Morwenna's room. The scent of dust and old herbs still lingered in the air. When she lifted the heavy, damp mattress, she saw it, an iron key, rusted and cold. Curiosity was stronger than the fear coursing through her veins. The key turned in the lock, and its click shattered the house's silence. As she opened the heavy lid, a sharp smell of dampness and dead earth hit her. Inside, a white, shroud-like cloth was carefully folded. When she moved the cloth aside, her breath caught in her throat. A piece of dried human skin, wrinkled and yellowed, looking like a fragment from the palm of a hand, lay there. Beside it was an old, yellowed piece of paper, covered in a complex, intertwined, and incomprehensible script, resembling some ancient writing but wilder. Right in the center of the paper, The shape of a circle with a waking eye in its middle was drawn. But what sent a shiver down her spine was the empty space of a small object. Next to the writings on the cloth, the impression of a metal ring was clearly visible. But the ring was gone. That night, the nightmares began. The sound of heavy, dragging footsteps coming down the hall, stopping right outside their bedroom door. The whispered voice of a woman from within the walls, repeating brokenly, "Bring it back." Arthur, the silent man of the house, woke up one night with a muffled scream, clutching his neck. In the dim glow of the bedside lamp, 3 deep, parallel scratch marks were carved into his skin. The mirrors would fog up for no reason, and the lights, with the sound of a popping bulb, would go out one by one. Elena was on the verge of madness. She took the paper to anyone she could, but no one understood it. Then she heard from an old neighbor that Morwenna had a relative in the upper villages who practiced the same craft, a man named Old Gideon. With her heart pounding in her throat, she made her way to the mountainous village. Gideon was an old man with gray, lifeless eyes and few teeth. He sat on his porch, staring at some unknown point in the distance. When she placed the paper before him, the old man froze for a moment. The color drained from his weathered face, and he raised his hand as if to ward off evil. "Heaven preserve us. This is a binding spell for a 3rd-tier earth spirit. My child, with this spell, Morwenna imprisoned one of the most powerful earth spirits in a ring. All her power, all those hexes and fortunes, came from this entity. Now that spirit is free, but its essence is still tied to this paper. Until its ring is found and destroyed, it will wander this world and turn your home into a living hell." Gideon said there was only one way to destroy the curse. On the night of the black moon, a night when no light from the moon is in the sky, the ring had to be found. Then, a circle of sea salt, black seed oil, a few strands of hair from a dead person, and 7 drops of her own blood had to be drawn on the floor. The ring had to be placed in the center of the circle, and the incantation on the paper had to be read aloud, without faltering. Not one word less, not one word more. Elena returned home. The ring, where could it be? She turned the entire house upside down. Finally, in utter desperation, she tore open Morwenna's old heavy pillow and found it among the yellowed, dirty cotton. A simple silver ring with a dull, black stone. It was cold, but when she held it, she felt it pulse with a faint beat, and an unintelligible whisper echoed in her ear. The night of the black moon arrived. The sky was like a black velvet cloth, starless and suffocating. Elena drew the circle in the middle of the living room. The house was plunged into absolute darkness, and only the flickering light of a single lantern cast dancing, terrifying shadows on the walls. She placed the ring in the center of the circle and picked up the paper with ice-cold hands. She took a deep breath and began to read. The foreign, difficult words barely escaped her throat. With each word, the air in the house grew colder, heavier. From a corner of the room, the faint, wicked laughter of a woman could be heard. The lantern began to sputter. Elena closed her eyes and raised her voice. Suddenly, she felt someone standing behind her, their cold breath on her neck. A whisper slithered into her ear. "Keep going. Your son will pay the price." Elena trembled but continued. As she reached the last line of the incantation, it felt as if all the air had been sucked out of the house. Everything froze. Absolute silence. And then, a scream. A scream that was not human. A scream that erupted from within the chest, from behind the mirrors, and from the heart of the walls, making the window panes vibrate. Her gaze fell on the ring. The black stone on the ring cracked. And then, with a sharp sound, it shattered into dust. For months, Elena had fragmented nightmares. Nightmares of Morwenna's closed eyes. Nightmares of that woman's laughter. But the voices stopped. The scratches no longer appeared on Arthur's body. The house became quiet again, but this time, its silence was soothing. Only one thing remained: an indelible mark. Sometimes, when Elena walked past the full-length mirror in the hallway, for a split second, she would see a dark shadow in the corner of the reflection, hastily retreating into the darkness. It was as if someone was still watching her from behind the veil of worlds. Only now, it was no longer allowed to enter.